Still working on that little startup of yours. My sister Rachel smirked across the Christmas dinner table, adjusting her new Cartier bracelet, a gift from her banker husband Tom. You know, there's an entry-level position at my company if you need a real job. I glanced down at my simple outfit, deliberately chosen to maintain my cover. The cheap watch on my wrist was actually a rare Patek Philippe, worth more than their house. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. The startup's going fine, I said mildly, helping myself to more turkey. Mom had always prided herself on her Christmas dinners, though the wine they'd served would barely qualify for my staff parties. Fine isn't paying the bills, my father chimed in, swirling his supermarket wine like it was vintage Bordeaux. Rachel and Tom just bought a vacation home in the Hamptons. Meanwhile, you're still driving that old Honda. If they only knew that old Honda was a one-of-a-kind prototype, personally gifted by Honda so after I acquired their autonomous vehicle division. Or that I owned half the real estate in the Hamptons, including the property next to Rachel's new luxury home. I'm managing, I said, suppressing a smile. The consulting business keeps me busy. Consulting? Tom laughed, checking his Rolex, a cheap model he'd bragged about for weeks. Is that what you're calling it now? Last I heard you were working out of some shabby office downtown. That shabby office was actually just the public entrance to Morgan Global Enterprises. The real offices occupied the top 30 floors of the building, my building. Not that they'd ever bothered to visit. Speaking of business, Rachel leaned forward eagerly. Tom just closed a huge deal at the bank. Tell them, honey. Biggest deal of the quarter, Tom puffed up. $50 million acquisition. The partners were very impressed. I bit back a laugh. My company spent more than that on office supplies. Last week I'd signed off on a $2 billion tech acquisition over breakfast. That's nice, I managed. Nice, my mother frowned. Alexandra, your sister's husband is a major player on Wall Street. You could learn something from him. If they only knew that Tom's bank was actually a subsidiary of one of my smaller holdings. I'd acquired it last year in a deal so quiet even the employees didn't know who really owned them. I'm sure I could, I said diplomatically, checking my phone. My real phone, the one with the private number only a handful of people had, was safely in my purse. Still can't afford a new phone either? Rachel sked. That model is at least 2 years old. The phone in question was actually a custom-designed secure device worth more than her car. But again, they didn't need to know that. Not yet. Maybe if you'd finished business school like Rachel, my father started his familiar lecture, you wouldn't be struggling with a failing startup at your age. I had finished business school actually, graduated top of my class from Harvard, then earned my MBA at Stanford. The failing startup was now a global corporation worth over $100 billion. But they'd skipped both graduations, too busy celebrating Rachel's promotion to middle management. You know, Rachel said with fake concern, my friend's beauty salon is hiring. You could start as a receptionist. That's when my private phone rang. The ringtone, a specific sequence I'd set for my CFO, cut through the dinner conversation. Everyone stared as I calmly retrieved the sleek device from my purse. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to take this. Really, Alexandra, my mother scolded. It's Christmas dinner. I answered anyway, putting it on speaker. Let them hear this. Ms. Morgan, my CFO's crisp voice filled the dining room. I apologize for interrupting your holiday, but I thought you'd want to know immediately. The acquisition is complete. Rachel rolled her eyes. Probably bought another failed startup. The $4 billion deal closed? I asked, watching their faces. Yes, ma'am. Global Tech Solutions is now officially part of Morgan Global Enterprises. The market response has been overwhelming. Stocks up 30% in after-hours trading. The turkey platter slipped from my mother's hands, crashing to the floor. Excellent, I continued calmly. And the other matter? The merger with Preston Financial? Also complete. $8 billion as negotiated. You now own controlling interest in their entire banking group. Tom's face went white. Preston Financial was his bank's parent company. Perfect timing, I smiled. By the way, James, what's our current market cap? As of close today, just over $100 billion, ma'am. The new acquisitions should push us past $120 billion when markets open. Rachel's Cartier bracelet clinked against her water glass as her hand began to shake. Thank you, James. Oh, and please remind Mr. Gates that we're still on for dinner next week. The jet can pick him up in Seattle. Bill Gates, my father whispered. Of course, Ms. Morgan. Will you be using the New York penthouse or the London office for the meeting? New York, I decided. Oh, and James? Send a car to pick me up. I think it's time to retire the Honda. The Rolls-Royce or the Bentley, ma'am? The Rolls, I said, watching my family's faces transform from condescension to shock. I think it's time for some truth at this family dinner. The silence in the dining room was absolute. The only sound was the gentle tick of the antique clock. A clock I'd actually gifted them last Christmas, though they assumed it was a cheap replica. It was genuine 18th century, worth more than their mortgage. This is some kind of joke, Rachel finally managed, her perfectly manicured hands trembling. You can't, you're not. Not what? I asked, slipping my private phone back into my purse. Not successful. Not wealthy. Not the CEO of one of the largest private corporations in the world. But you work in that small office downtown. Tom protested, his face ashen. I've seen it. You've seen the public entrance, I corrected. The consulting firm is just a front. Morgan Global occupies the top 30 floors of that building. The entire building, actually, I bought it last year. My father's wine glass stopped halfway to his mouth. You own the Morgan Tower? I own most of downtown, I said casually, reaching for my water glass. Along with similar holdings in London, Tokyo, Dubai, and about 30 other major cities. The sound of an approaching helicopter made everyone turn toward the window. The sleek black aircraft bore the Morgan Global logo, a stylized M that appeared on buildings and products worldwide. That would be my actual ride, I mentioned, though I did ask James to send the rolls. I thought we might want to continue this conversation. Continue what conversation? My mother asked faintly. Alexandra, what's going on? What's going on is that your daughter, the one you've mocked and belittled for years, is one of the wealthiest people on earth. I smiled slightly. That little startup you've been ridiculing? Morgan Global Enterprises is now worth more than most countries' GDP. Rachel's mascara was starting to run. But you never said anything. I tried. Multiple times. I turned to face her directly. Remember last Christmas when I offered to buy everyone new cars? You said you didn't want charity from someone who couldn't afford a decent dress. I smoothed my hand over my deceptively simple outfit. This decent dress is a one-of-a-kind Chanel piece that cost more than your Hamptons house. Tom was frantically checking his phone, probably looking up Morgan Global. This can't be real. Morgan Global owns. Oh God. Owns what, dear? Rachel turned to her husband. Everything, he whispered. Tech companies, banks, real estate. Preston Financial. Yes, about that, I said, watching him pale further. As your new ultimate boss, we should discuss those creative accounting practices you've been using. The SEC is particularly interested in last month's transactions. The sound of tires on gravel announced the arrival of my car. Through the dining room window, we could all see the gleaming Rolls-Royce Phantom, complete with chauffeur and security detail. That's... My father started. Pie car, I finished. One of them anyway. The garage at my Manhattan penthouse holds about 50 vehicles, each worth more than this house. Manhattan penthouse, my mother squeaked. The one that takes up the top 3 floors of Morgan Plaza. Though I prefer my London residence, the views of the Thames are spectacular. Just then everyone's phones buzzed simultaneously. Breaking news alerts. I watched their faces as they read the headlines. Morgan Global completes $12 billion dual acquisition. Wall Street stunned as Alexandra Morgan expands empire. Tech and banking sectors transformed by Morgan's latest move. $12 billion, Rachel whispered. You just spent $12 billion over Christmas dinner. Actually, I spent $12 billion while you were mocking my career choices, I corrected. The paperwork was signed last week. This was just the public announcement. Tom's phone started buzzing continuously, likely his boss is panicking about the Preston Financial acquisition. I should take these. No need, I said smoothly. You're fired. What? Rachel stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. You can't fire my husband. I can and I did. The SEC investigation into his illegal trading activities begins tomorrow. I turned to Tom. Though I'm willing to be lenient if you cooperate fully. Investigation. My father looked between us. Tom, what is she talking about? Oh, did he not tell you about the insider trading? I pulled out my phone, bringing up a file. The offshore accounts. The client money he's been embezzling. Rachel's face went from angry to horrified. Tom. I have every email, every transaction, every phone call, I continued. Did you really think nobody would notice you were stealing from your clients? The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, my security team had taken up positions around the house, standard procedure when I traveled. Now then, I said, standing up. Shall we discuss how this is going to play out? The Christmas tree lights cast dancing shadows across my family's shocked faces as I reached into my cheap handbag, actually a one-of-a-kind Hermes piece worth more than their cars combined, and pulled out 4 thick envelopes. Inside each envelope, I began, you'll find 2 options. Consider them my Christmas gifts to you. Gifts. Rachel's voice cracked. After you just destroyed Tom's career? Tom destroyed his own career, I corrected, placing an envelope in front of each of them. The SEC has been building their case for months. Did you really think Morgan Global wouldn't notice one of its subsidiary banks had a vice president embezzling client funds? My phone buzzed again, messages from various world leaders and business titans about the acquisitions. The president wanted a briefing. The Japanese prime minister was concerned about market implications. I silenced them all. This family matter needed my full attention. Option 1, I continued, is a chance at legitimate success. Each of you will be offered an entry-level position in one of my smaller companies. No special treatment, no shortcuts. Just an opportunity to earn honest success through actual work. Entry level? Rachel's mascara was now completely ruined. I'm a senior marketing director. You're unemployed, I corrected. Your company was acquired by Morgan Global last month. Your position has been eliminated. My mother's hand shook as she reached for her envelope. And option 2? Face the consequences of your actions without my intervention. I turned to Tom. The SEC is particularly interested in how family members helped conceal your fraud. Those investment tips you gave Dad? The special accounts you set up for Rachel? All illegal. My father's face went from red to gray. The investments Tom recommended were all fraudulent, I finished. Along with the offshore accounts he created using your social security numbers, the shell companies he registered under Mom's Charity Foundation, and about a dozen other financial crimes. Rachel turned to her husband, horror dawning on her face. You used our personal information for fraud? He did more than that, I said, pulling out my phone to show her a series of transactions. He's been stealing from your trust fund for years. That Hamptons house you're so proud of? Bought with embezzled client money. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle hum of my security team's radios outside. Through the window I could see 3 black SUVs had joined my Rolls-Royce standard protective protocol for someone of my status. My mother found her voice first. Why didn't you tell us who you really were? All these years. I tried, I said softly. Remember when I offered to invest in Dad's business expansion? You said you didn't want charity from a failure. That expansion would have cost less than what I spend on office furniture. But the small office. My father started. Morgan Global is just a front, I explained. That little office you mocked? It's actually the entrance to our global headquarters. We have over 300,000 employees. We own businesses in tech, finance, real estate, and manufacturing. My phone buzzed again. A stock alert showed our market value had passed $150 billion after the latest deals. I turned the screen toward them. Their eyes widened. That's more money than... Rachel couldn't finish her sentence. More than you ever imagined? I said. While you bragged about Tom's bank job and Rachel's middle manager role, I was building something real. Something honest. Just then everyone's phones buzzed again. News alerts lit up. SEC investigates fraud at Preston Financial. Top bank executive faces charges. Morgan Global assisting in federal probe. Tom looked sick. Rachel stared at her phone, realizing their accounts were probably already frozen. My parents sat in silence. The Christmas dinner on the table was now cold and untouched. You have until midnight to decide, I said, standing. Make your choice. Tom tried to sound strong. What if we say no to both? I smiled. Then tomorrow my legal team gives all the evidence to the SEC. Every email, every transaction, every phone call. Including proof that my family helped hide your crimes. We didn't know. My mother cried. Really? I tapped on my phone. Then why do I have emails from you, Mom, where you told your charity board that Tom's fake investments made you huge profits? What were those lies for? She slumped in her chair, pale. And Dad, I continued, you sent Tom your clients and took consulting fees in return. The SEC is very curious about those payments. My father's hands were shaking. Alexandra, please. Please what? Cover for you again? Help you hide everything like I used to? I shook my head. Morgan Global wins because we play fair. We don't cheat. Rachel started crying, her makeup smearing. What's going to happen to us? That depends on what you choose, I said, packing up my things. Work for me. Do it right this time. Or face the consequences. Through the window I saw my helicopter arriving. I had a dinner meeting in New York with Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Oh, and one last thing. I placed a USB drive on the table. Tom looked at it, nervous. What's on that? Evidence, I said simply. Everything the SEC knows. Everything about your crimes. It's my final gift. A warning. A chance. My head of security stepped into the room. Ms. Morgan, the helicopter is ready. Thanks, James. I looked at my stunned family one last time. And by the way, don't bother inviting me to next year's Christmas dinner. I'll be busy running my empire. As I walked away, my mother called after me, broken and confused. Why did you let us treat you like that all these years? I paused, glancing back at the fancy house, the expensive wine, the fake image they worked so hard to maintain. Because real power isn't about revenge or showing off, I said. It's about building something real. And now you have a choice. Join me and do it right, or face the truth you've ignored for years. Outside, the helicopter's blades spun louder. My security team formed a path. Inside, I saw them still frozen at the table, dinner ruined by reality. My private phone buzzed one last time. A message from my CEO. Asian markets are opening. Ready to change the world again. I smiled, looking at the city lights as we rose into the sky. Always. Because real success isn't built on lies and image. It's built on truth, work, and vision. And this was just the beginning.